I escaped my son's house in the night after hearing his wife's plan for me. It was 2 in the morning when my world collapsed. I heard the voice of my daughter-in-law, Isabel, on the phone. We're taking her to the nursing home tomorrow. It's all arranged. My blood ran cold. I grabbed my purse and slipped out the back door. The next day, they were desperately looking for me, but by then, it was far too late for regrets. My name is Amalia. I'm 70 years old, and for the last 5 years, I've lived in the house of my son, Cesar, and his wife, Isabel. I thought it was my home. I thought they were my family. How wrong I was. It all began when I was widowed. Cesar appeared at my door, tears in his eyes, telling me he couldn't leave me alone, that I was his only family, and he needed me close. His words moved me so deeply that I sold my apartment and moved in with them. At first, everything seemed perfect. Cesar treated me with affection. Isabel smiled whenever she saw me, and I felt useful helping with housework and looking after them. But slowly, very slowly, the smiles began to fade. Sweet words turned sharp, hugs became empty gestures, and I, like a fool, kept believing it was just a rough patch, that things would get better. Isabel was the first to show her true colors. It started with seemingly innocent comments. Amalia, don't you think you're eating a little too much? Or, maybe you should stay in your room when we have guests. The house looks tidier that way. Cesar never contradicted her. Worse, he started to back her up. Mom, Isabel is right. It's better if you rest more. Rest. That was their favorite word when they wanted me to disappear. The months passed and the humiliations intensified. Isabel stopped cooking for me. If you want something special, you can make it yourself, she would say with that perfected fake smile. Cesar would pretend not to notice when he came home from work and found my plate empty on the table while they finished their dinner. Did you eat, Mom? He'd ask distractedly, not really waiting for an answer. One night, while I was washing the dishes after they had gone to their room, I heard their voices through the wall. She can't stay like this forever, Isabel said. She's too much of a burden. I know, Cesar replied, but she's my mother. Exactly. She's your mother, not mine. And I didn't marry you to become a nurse for the elderly. My hands trembled as I held the plate. A nurse for the elderly. That's what she thought of me. Not a mother-in-law, not a grandmother to their future children, but a burden. The following weeks were hell. Isabel began treating me as if I were invisible, walking past me without a glance. When I spoke to her, she'd respond with monosyllables or simply ignore me. Cesar wasn't any better. He'd come home from work, kiss Isabel, and greet me with a nod, as if I were a stranger in his own home. But what hurt most was how they talked about me when they thought I couldn't hear. She's getting slower, Isabel would say. Yesterday, it took her an hour to do something that would normally take 20 minutes. Maybe we should look at some options, Cesar would respond, his voice hesitant. Options. That word haunted me during sleepless nights. What kind of options? I didn't dare ask, but deep down, I already knew. What they didn't know, what they never bothered to find out, was that I had my own secrets, aces I kept up my sleeve for the day I might need them. During my 60 years of marriage, my late husband and I had been very careful with our money. We had properties, investments, and savings accounts that had grown silently over the years. When I sold my apartment to move in with Cesar, I didn't spend the money. I invested it, and it had grown substantially. There was also something else they were completely unaware of, something that could change everything if I ever decided to reveal it. But that night, that August night, as I pretended to be asleep in my small room at the end of the hall, I heard footsteps in the kitchen. It was Isabel, speaking softly on the phone. I got up silently and crept to my door. Her words hit me like daggers. Yes, I already spoke with the director. She can take her in tomorrow. Cesar agrees. We just need her to sign the papers. A pause. My heart was beating so loudly I feared she could hear it. No, she doesn't know anything. Tomorrow we'll tell her it's just a visit to see the place. Once she's there, it'll be easier to convince her to stay. Another longer pause. Do I feel bad? Please, we've been carrying her for 5 years. It's time for her to live her own life in a place where she belongs. My legs nearly gave out. A nursing home. They were going to take me to a nursing home without consulting me, without giving me a choice, as if I were a piece of old furniture they wanted to get rid of. In that moment, I knew I had to act. I couldn't just lie there and wait for morning to be dragged away like an animal to the slaughter. Very slowly, I returned to my room and grabbed my purse. Inside, I had my most important documents, some cash, and my phone. It was all I needed for now. I waited until I heard Isabel go upstairs and close her bedroom door. Then, like a thief in my own home, I tiptoed to the back door. The night air was cool against my skin. For the first time in years, I took a deep breath and felt something like freedom. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I was never going to be anyone's victim again. I walked through the dark streets for an hour before hailing a taxi. I gave the driver the address of the most elegant hotel in the city. If they were going to treat me like a pauper, it was time to remind them who I really was. The receptionist gave me a strange look when I arrived at 3 a.m. with just a handbag, but my credit card spoke for itself. The presidential suite, for 2 nights to start. I sat on that king-sized bed, in a room that cost more per night than Caesar earned in a week, and for the first time in years, I truly smiled. At 6 a.m., my phone started ringing. Caesar. I let it ring. He called again, and again and again. Then came the texts. Mom, where are you? We're worried. Please answer. Worried. Such a convenient word. By 8 a.m., Isabel started calling too. Her voice on the voicemail sounded hysterical. Amalia, please come back. We don't know what happened. Caesar is desperate. Desperate, I was sure, because they realized their nursing home plan had been ruined. I ordered room service. Eggs Benedict, smoked salmon, fresh fruit, and Colombian coffee. As I ate on my suite's terrace overlooking the city, I pictured Cesar and Isabel running around the house, searching every corner, calling hospitals, maybe even the police. Let them worry. Let them feel even a fraction of the anguish I had felt for years. After breakfast, I made some important calls. The first was to my bank. I wanted to know exactly how much money I had available. The figure surprised even me. The investments had done better than I'd expected. The second call was more delicate. I dialed the number of Gustavo Herrera, the best family law attorney in the city. I knew him because he had handled my husband's will years ago. This is Amalia. His voice sounded surprised. How are you? I need to see you urgently, Gustavo. I have a complicated family situation. Of course, you can come by this afternoon. I'll be here. The third call was the most important of all. I dialed a number I had saved for over 5 years, ever since I moved in with Caesar. It was Paula, my old friend and real estate agent. Amalia, what a surprise to hear from you. How are you, dear? Paula, I need you to do a very special favor for me. Do you remember that property downtown you saw years ago? The one you said would be perfect for me if I ever decided to live on my own again? While we talked, my phone continued to vibrate with missed calls. Caesar had called 14 times. Isabel, 8. They had even managed to find my late husband's number, which I still kept as an emergency contact, and had called it. How maddening it must be when you can't control someone you're used to manipulating. At 2 p.m., I went down to the hotel lobby dressed in my best pearl gray suit and my most elegant leather shoes. I had booked an appointment at the hotel's beauty salon, manicure, pedicure, haircut, and styling. If I were going to start a war, I would do it looking impeccable. The stylist, a young woman named Lydia, looked at me curiously. Special occasion, ma'am? You could say that, I replied. It's the first day of the rest of my life. As Lydia worked on my hair, I reflected on the last 5 years, on how I had allowed them to treat me this way, on when I had stopped valuing myself. The answer was painful but clear. From the moment I thought being a burden was better than being alone. But I wasn't alone anymore. I had money, I had resources, and above all, I had the truth on my side. At 4 p.m., I arrived at Gustavo's office. It was on the 25th floor of a skyscraper in the financial district. The windows overlooked the entire city, and from there, I could see the neighborhood where Caesar lived. Amalia, you look splendid, Gustavo said as he served me coffee. But something tells me this isn't a social visit. I told him everything. The conversation I'd overheard, the nursing home plan, my nighttime escape. Gustavo took notes as I spoke, his expression growing more serious with each detail. This is very serious, Amalia. What they planned could constitute elder abuse, especially if they intended to do it without your consent. What are my options? Many. But first, I need you to tell me something. Do they know about your real financial situation? They have no idea. Caesar thinks I'm a poor widow living off his charity. Gustavo smiled for the first time in our meeting. Then we have a considerable advantage. He explained the legal options. Protection orders, lawsuits for emotional abuse, and even criminal charges if we could prove they had planned to commit me against my will. But I have a different proposal, he continued. What if we teach them a lesson they will never forget? His eyes sparkled with a glint I liked immediately. I'm all ears, Gustavo. We are going to show them exactly what the woman they thought they could discard is worth. But we'll do it in a way that the blow is public, final, and completely legal. I left that office with a plan, one that would take a few weeks to execute but would be worth every minute of the wait. Back at the hotel, I finally decided to answer one of Cesar's calls. Mom! Thank God! Where are you? We've been looking everywhere. Isabel is crying. We thought something terrible had happened to you. His voice sounded genuinely worried. He almost convinced me. Almost. I'm fine, Cesar. I just needed to go for a walk and clear my head. A walk? It's been over 12 hours. Where are you? In a safe place. Don't worry about me. Mom, please, come home. We can talk about whatever is bothering you. Talk, as if it were that simple. You know what, Cesar? You're right. We do need to talk. But not on the phone. In person and when I'm ready. When will that be? Soon, very soon. I hung up before he could reply. That night, as I ate lobster in my suite overlooking the city lights, I toasted to myself, to the woman I had been, to the woman I was reclaiming, and to the woman I was becoming. Cesar and Isabel had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated the wrong woman. The next few days were a mix of strategic preparation and personal rediscovery. I woke up each morning in that luxury suite, ordered room service, and worked on my battle plan while Cesar and Isabel continued their desperate calls. Their messages had evolved from worry to pleading, and then to something that sounded dangerously close to veiled threats. Mom, this isn't funny anymore, Cesar said in his last message. Isabel is a nervous wreck. You need to come back right now, or we'll have to take more drastic measures. Drastic measures? Like taking me to the home by force? How predictable. But there was something they didn't know, something I had discovered during my conversations with Gustavo. It turned out that the house they had lived in all these years, the house Cesar considered his, actually had a more complicated history. When my husband died, he left that property in a trust under my name. Cesar could live there as long as I was alive and consented, but technically, legally, the house was mine. He had never bothered to read the full will. Why would he? After all, I was just his poor widowed mother who depended on his generosity. On the 4th day of my disappearance, I decided it was time for the next phase. Paula had found the perfect apartment, a penthouse in the city's most exclusive neighborhood, fully furnished with 24-hour concierge service. Amalia, this place is a dream, she said as we toured it. 2 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a terrace with a jacuzzi, and the most spectacular view in the entire city. When can I move in? Whenever you want. The owner is desperate to rent it to someone reliable. I signed the lease that afternoon, paying for 2 years in advance, in cash. After leaving the real estate office, I took a taxi to the city's most elegant mall. It was time to renew my wardrobe. For years, I had dressed like the poor widow they thought I was. Worn clothes, dull colors, comfortable but styleless shoes. Today, that ended. In the most exclusive boutique, a saleswoman attended to me with that mix of professional courtesy and slight disdain reserved for customers who don't look like they can afford the merchandise. How can I help you, madam? I need a completely new wardrobe. Business suits, cocktail dresses, shoes, and accessories, everything. Her expression changed slightly when I pulled out my black credit card. 2 hours later, I left with 8 bags filled with clothes that cost more than Cesar earned in 3 months. Dresses in emerald, cherry red, gold, and deep violet. I would never wear sad colors again. That night, as I unpacked my new purchases, my phone rang. It was an unrecognized number. Hello? Mrs. Amalia? This is Inspector Raul Mendoza from the Municipal Police. Your son Cesar filed a missing person report. Could you please confirm that you are all right? Interesting. They had escalated the drama to involve the police. Inspector, I am perfectly fine. I am in full command of my mental faculties and have decided to take a vacation. There is no disappearance to investigate. Could you tell me where you are, ma'am? Your son is very worried. I am in the city, in a safe place. And Inspector, I want it on record that I left that house of my own free will and do not wish to be contacted until I am ready. Is that understood? Yes, ma'am. Is there anything else you need? Yes. If my son or his wife files any more false reports about me, I want them to know I may consider it harassment. The silence on the other end of the line was eloquent. The next day, I moved into the penthouse. My new home was everything Paula had promised and more. From the terrace, I could see the entire city spread out at my feet. I poured myself a glass of red wine and toasted my new independence. But the real satisfaction came that afternoon when I finally decided to answer one of Cesar's calls. Mom, thank God. The police told us you're okay, but we need to see you. Where are you? I'm at my new home, Cesar. Your new home? What are you talking about? I moved out. I got my own apartment. A long silence. With what money? Mom, you don't have the resources to live alone. You need to come home before you do something you'll regret. My house. Interesting that you use that word. What do you mean? Nothing, son. Just that it's funny how sometimes words reveal more than we intend. Mom, you're talking strangely. Isabel says maybe you need medical help. We could take you to see a doctor. There was the real Isabel bubbling to the surface. Isabel says that? How thoughtful of her to be concerned about my mental health. She just wants what's best for you. We all do. Like taking me to a nursing home? The silence that followed was deafening. What are you talking about? I think you know exactly what I'm talking about, Cesar. Mom, We never what? Never planned to commit me without my consent? Never discussed how convenient it would be to get rid of the burden I represent? I don't know where you heard that, but I heard it from your wife's lips. Cesar. At 2 a.m. on the phone, arranging my fate as if I were a piece of old furniture to be discarded. Another long, tense silence. Mom, if you heard something out of context? Out of context? We're taking her to the nursing home tomorrow. It's all arranged. What context could make those words mean something different? We were just exploring options, without consulting me. You thought it would be better. You thought it would be more convenient. For you, isn't that right? So explain it to me, Cesar. Explain how planning to institutionalize your own mother without her knowledge is an act of love. He couldn't, because no explanation could justify the unjustifiable. I want to see you, he finally said. We need to talk in person, I agree. But it will be when I decide, where I decide, and on my terms. When? Soon, son, very soon. And when we see each other, you're going to discover a few things about your poor, widowed mother that are going to surprise you. I hung up before he could respond. That night, while dining on my terrace under the stars, I called Gustavo. How is our project coming along? Better than expected, Amalia. I have some very interesting information about Cesar and Isabel's finances. It seems they've been living above their means for years. How far above? Credit card debt, personal loans, behind on the mortgage. They've been using your presence in the house to justify expenses they can't afford. Interesting. There's more. Apparently, Isabel has been telling her friends that you have senile dementia and that's why you need special care. She's been building a narrative to justify the nursing home. My blood boiled. Do you have proof of that? I'm gathering it now. Amalia, when we're finished with this, they are going to regret ever messing with you. I hung up with a smile on my lips. Cesar and Isabel had no idea what was coming for them. A week after moving into the penthouse, I had established a new routine. Breakfast on the terrace, a workout in the building's gym, and afternoons spent working with Gustavo on our master plan. For the first time in years, I felt alive, powerful, in control of my own destiny. Cesar had stopped calling after our last conversation. Isabel, on the other hand, had intensified her attempts. Her voicemails revealed a growing desperation. Amalia, please come back. Cesar is doing terribly. He's barely eating, barely sleeping. This is destroying us as a family. As a family. The irony. Amalia, I know you're angry, but running away doesn't solve anything. We're adults. We can talk like civilized people. Civilized people, like when they were planning to commit me without my consent. But the message that caught my attention arrived on a Thursday night. Amalia, I need to be honest with you. Cesar is considering reporting you as mentally incompetent. He says your behavior proves you can't make rational decisions. Please come back before this gets out of control. There was the real Isabel, a veiled threat wrapped in false concern. I forwarded the message to Gustavo immediately. "Perfect," he said when I called him. "This is exactly what we needed. They're digging their own grave. How so? If Caesar tries to have you declared incompetent, we would have grounds for a lawsuit for defamation and elder abuse. But more importantly, it would be the perfect time to reveal your true financial situation. Do you have everything ready for phase 2? Everything is prepared. Are you sure you want to do this in public?" "Absolutely. I want it to be as humiliating for them as it was for me to hear their plans that night." The plan was simple, but devastating. Paula had organized a luxury property exhibition at the city's most exclusive hotel. Caesar and Isabel had been specifically invited under the pretext of an investment opportunity that might interest them. What they didn't know was that I would be the event's keynote speaker. The day arrived faster than I expected. I dressed in my new emerald green suit, high heels, and jewelry I had bought specially for the occasion. In the mirror, I saw a woman I didn't recognize. Elegant, powerful, intimidating. I arrived at the hotel an hour before the guests. The ballroom was perfectly prepared with property displays, canapes, champagne, and a giant screen for the presentations. Paula was reviewing the final details when Gustavo arrived with a portfolio full of documents. "Ready for the show?" he asked. More than ready. At 7 p.m., the guests began to arrive. Entrepreneurs, investors, and wealthy people genuinely interested in the properties. And then at 7:30, I saw them walk in. Caesar wore his only good suit, the one he used for weddings and funerals. Isabel had tried to look elegant in a red dress she probably bought on sale. They looked completely out of place among the city's financial elite. I watched them from across the room as they searched for whoever had invited them, their faces a mixture of nervousness and excitement. Paula took to the small stage to welcome everyone. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our exclusive premium property exhibition. Tonight, we have the honor of presenting a carefully chosen selection of the best real estate investments in the city." Cesar and Isabel smiled nervously, trying to blend in. "But before we begin," Paula continued, "I want to introduce you to an extraordinary woman, a visionary investor who has recently decided to significantly expand her real estate portfolio. Please, let's give a warm welcome to Mrs. Amalia Vega." The audience's applause followed me as I walked onto the stage. From my elevated position, I could see Cesar and Isabel's faces perfectly. First, confusion. What was their poor, widowed mother doing at a luxury investment event? Then recognition. It was really me, but transformed, elegant, speaking confidently to an elite audience. Finally, horror, as they began to understand the implications of what they were seeing. "Good evening," I began, my voice clear and firm. "Over the last 5 years, I have learned a great deal about the true value of things. Above all, I've learned that sometimes the people closest to us can be the ones who know us the least." I looked directly at Cesar and Isabel. The color had drained from their faces. "I have decided to share my story with you because I believe it perfectly illustrates why it is so important to maintain our financial independence. Regardless of our age." The audience listened intently, some having already noticed where my gaze was directed. 5 years ago, I decided to move in with my son and his wife. I sold my property and thought it would be wonderful to live as a family. What I didn't expect was to discover that my presence had become a burden to them. A murmur rippled through the room. This was not the typical investment presentation they expected. 2 weeks ago, I happened to overhear a phone conversation. My daughter-in-law was arranging for me to be committed to a nursing home without my knowledge or consent. "We're taking her to the nursing home tomorrow. It's all arranged." Those were her exact words. The murmur grew louder. Some guests began looking around, trying to identify the story's protagonists. Caesar tried to move towards the exit, but Isabel stopped him, probably thinking it would confirm their guilt. That night, I made a decision. Instead of becoming a victim of their plan, I decided to remind them of something they had completely forgotten. I paused dramatically. That the woman they planned to discard as a nuisance had her own resources. Considerable resources. Gustavo appeared beside the stage with the portfolio. "Tonight," I continued, "I have purchased 3 properties from this exhibition. A penthouse in the financial district, a country house in the mountains, and a commercial building downtown. Total investment, millions of dollars in cash." The silence in the room was absolute. Cesar looked like he was about to faint. Isabel's jaw was hanging open. "I want this to be a lesson to everyone present," I continued. Never underestimate the elderly. And never ever assume you know someone's true situation. I stepped down from the stage to thunderous applause. The audience was captivated by the drama they had just witnessed. I walked directly towards Cesar and Isabel. Other guests had already realized who they were and were looking at them with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. "Hello, son," I said in a calm voice. "Surprised to see me?" Cesar stared at me as if he'd seen a ghost. His face went from white to red and then to a sickly green. Isabel, meanwhile, was like a marble statue, completely frozen. "Mom," Cesar whispered. What is all this?" "This, my dear son, is reality. The reality you never bothered to learn." Other guests began to discreetly move closer, pretending to look at property brochures while they listened in. The drama was too juicy to ignore. "Mrs. Amalia," Paula interjected with a malicious smile. "Are these the relatives you told me about? The ones who thought you needed special care?" Isabel finally found her voice. "Amalia, I don't understand. Since when do you have so much money?" "I've always had it, dear Isabel. You just assumed I was a poor, helpless widow. You never asked. You were never interested in my real situation." Cesar tried to step closer. "Mom, if you had resources, why didn't you tell us?" "We could have what, Cesar? Treated me with respect? Did they consult me before planning my life? Or would you have simply found more creative ways to take advantage?" An older man who had been listening approached us. "Excuse me, ma'am, but is it true they planned to put you in a home without your consent?" "Completely true," I replied, my eyes still locked on Cesar. "My daughter-in-law arranged everything over the phone. It's all arranged," were her words. The man shook his head in disgust. "That's elder abuse. They should be in jail." Isabel turned beet red. "That's not true." "We just wanted what was best for her. We thought she needed more care." "Care?" My voice rose slightly. "Like ignoring me during dinner? Like making me feel invisible in my own home? Like arguing about how annoying my presence was?" More people had gathered around us, some discreetly recording with their phones. "Amalia, please," Cesar begged. "People are watching. We can discuss this in private." "In private? Like when you two discussed my future in private without including me?" Gustavo appeared at my side with a folder. "Mrs. Amalia, would you like me to show them the documents now?" "What documents?" Isabel asked nervously. "The documents that prove the house you've been living in for the past 5 years are legally mine," I answered calmly. The silence that followed was deafening. Cesar looked like he had been slapped. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that when your father died, he left that property in a trust under my name. You could live there as long as I was alive and consented, but technically, legally, the house is mine." Isabel staggered. "That can't be true." Gustavo opened the folder and displayed the documents. "These are the trust papers, duly registered and notarized. Mrs. Amalia is the legal owner of the property." Cesar took the documents with trembling hands. But I thought, Dad told me the house would be mine." "Your father told you that you could live there and take care of me." "That's not the same as being the owner." An elegant woman who had been listening stepped forward. "Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Lydia Montero from the city's financial newspaper. Would you be willing to give an interview about your story?" "Of course," I replied. "I think it's important for people to know what can happen to seniors when their family makes the wrong assumptions." Cesar grabbed my arm. "Mom, please don't make this public. We can sort this out between us." I gently freed myself from his grip. "Like when you two sorted out my future between yourselves? Without consulting me, without including me, treating me like an object to be disposed of?" "It wasn't like that," Isabel shouted, losing her composure completely. "We took care of you for 5 years. We gave you a roof, food, everything you needed." "You gave me," my voice turned glacial, "a roof in my own house?" The murmur of indignation from the onlookers was audible. "Mrs. Amalia," the journalist said, "what are your plans now?" "Very simple," I replied with a smile. "I'm going to live my life on my own terms, in my own home, with my own money. And I'm going to make sure my story serves as a warning to other seniors who might be in similar situations." Cesar looked utterly defeated. "And what about us? Where are we going to live?" "That," I said, turning towards the exit, "is an excellent question. One you should have asked yourselves before you planned to send me to a nursing home." Her family went viral. Videos from the event were shared thousands of times, and my phone rang nonstop with interview requests. But the most satisfying part was watching Cesar and Isabel's attempts at damage control. Isabel created an Instagram account to tell her side of the story. "People don't understand," she said in tearful videos. "We love Amalia like family. We just wanted what was best for her. Modern nursing homes are beautiful places where seniors can socialize and receive professional care." Her followers didn't believe a word. The comments were ruthless. "Without consulting her at 2 a.m.? That's not love, it's abuse. And why didn't you know she had money? Weren't you interested in the woman you lived with?" Cesar opted for a different strategy, leaving me increasingly desperate voicemails. "Mom, this is getting out of control. Isabel is getting threats online. People recognize us on the street and insult us. Please, say something publicly to calm things down." After 5 years of humiliation, they wanted me to defend them. The message that struck me most came a week after the event. "Mom, we lost our jobs. Isabel was fired because the story reached her office. I was asked to resign because my family situation was affecting the company's image. We don't have the money to pay rent if we have to move. Please help us." Funny how their tone changed when they needed something. That afternoon, I had my most important interview yet on the country's most watched morning show. It was broadcast live from my penthouse to showcase my new life. I prepared carefully, choosing a violet dress and elegant jewelry. When the camera crew arrived, my apartment looked like it was out of a magazine. "Good morning," the host, Patricia, began. "I'm here with Amalia Vega, the woman whose story has captivated the nation. Amalia, how do you feel after everything that has happened?" "Patricia, for the first time in years, I feel free. Free to live without apologizing for my existence, free to make my own decisions, and free to be treated with the respect I deserve." "Your daughter-in-law, Isabel, has been saying you only wanted to protect her, that the nursing home was for her well-being. Patricia, when someone plans your future behind your back in the middle of the night, that isn't protection, it's control. And when they've been treating you like a burden for years, it's hard to believe their motives were altruistic. What would you say to other seniors in similar situations?" "I would tell them it's never too late to reclaim your dignity. Don't let anyone make you feel like a burden, and above all, maintain control over your own lives and finances. We understand your son Cesar has been trying to contact you." "Yes, especially since they lost their jobs. And what do you plan to do?" "Look, Patricia, I'm not a vengeful person, but I'm not a fool either. For 5 years, Cesar and Isabel treated me like I was invisible when they thought I depended on them. Now that they've discovered I have my own resources, suddenly I'm important again. Are you willing to reconcile?" A real reconciliation requires a genuine acknowledgement of the harm caused, sincere apologies, and real changes in behavior. So far, all I've received are excuses and justifications. The interview continued, and with each answer, I felt stronger. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. A few days later, an investigative journalist named Raul contacted me. He came to my penthouse with a folder full of documents. "Mrs. Amalia," he said gravely, "what I've found is deeply disturbing." He revealed that for the past 5 years, Cesar and Isabel had been committing fraud. They had declared me a mentally ill dependent to get government assistance, tax deductions, and preferential loans. There were fake medical bills and reports from a psychiatrist who supposedly treated me for senile dementia. Worse, Isabel had been running a blog for 2 years called Living with Amalia, the diary of a devoted daughter-in-law, where she documented my fictitious episodes of aggression and memory loss. The blog had sponsors and a donation account, earning them thousands of dollars. They had even started a crowdfunding campaign to renovate the house to make it safer for a person with dementia. I was speechless. They hadn't just planned to get rid of me. They had been profiting from lies about my mental health for years. My next move was clear. We arranged a live stream on social media. As over 50,000 people tuned in, I laid out the evidence: the fraudulent tax returns, the fabricated blog posts, the crowdfunding page. My phone rang midstream. It was Cesar. I put him on speaker. "Mom, please stop this. You're destroying our lives." "Hello, Cesar," I said calmly. "I live with 50,000 people. Is there anything you'd like to say about the money you got by lying about my health? This is all Isabel's fault," he stammered. I didn't know about the blog. The live comments exploded with outrage. Then Isabel grabbed the phone, screaming that I had no right to ruin their lives. "No right?" I countered. "After you ruined mine for 5 years? Isabel, I'm reading your blog entry from March 15th, where you claim I had a violent episode. Could you explain that? Because on that day, I was in Miami meeting with my investment broker. I have receipts. The line went dead. I ended the broadcast by announcing that my lawyers were filing formal charges for fraud, defamation, and elder abuse. Justice was coming. 6 months later, I sat on my terrace reading the newspaper. The headline made me smile. Couple sentenced to prison for fraud against senior. Cesar received 2 years. Isabel 3.5. They also had to pay a hefty fine and perform community service in nursing homes upon their release. But their punishment wasn't my greatest victory. The Amalia Vega Foundation for the Protection of Seniors had already helped over 200 people. My story had inspired changes in state law, and at 71 I had rediscovered myself. I took salsa lessons, started painting, and traveled the world. I had friends, purpose, and peace. My story proved that it's never too late to reclaim your life. I learned that kindness does not mean being a doormat, that family love does not justify abuse, and that age is not synonymous with vulnerability. Sometimes the best revenge is simply to live well. Cesar and Isabel had thought they were throwing me away like trash. Instead, they set me free to become the best version of myself. My purpose was no longer to be the perfect mother or the compliant mother-in-law. My purpose was simply to be Amalia, whole, independent, and finally, free.